Hello and welcome to the second part of Chapter 5. Last lecture we discussed the cultural, social and personal factors that affecting consumer buying behavior. Today we will continue those factors by discussing the psychological factors that affecting consumer buying behavior. First of all, we will discuss the motivation, and then we will see what the meaning of perception, learning, beliefs and attitude. Motivation. The motive is a need that a person feel, and this need make like a pressure for a person and need to be achieved. An example of the motive is the hunger. If a person is hungry, then this motive will make a pressure for this person to eat. There is a huge research stream in this field, which is the motivation research, and one of the most important studies in this research is done by Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow developed what we call it the hierarchy of needs. Maslow suggested that the first level of motives or needs that face any individual are the psychological needs. Those needs are the main needs that we face as human beings. Some examples for those needs are the hunger, thirst, and sleep. The second level of needs based on Maslow hierarchy of needs are the safety needs. And the safety needs contains the security and protection that we all look for. An evidence of this group of needs can be found in our looking for a house that we live in, or looking for safety cars or safety place for our children. Those are some examples of the pressure that we face from this group of needs. The third level is related to the social needs. And social needs means that we all look for making friendship or live in groups, like for example the family group or friends and colleagues. The fourth level is related to esteem needs or self-esteem needs, and this group is related to our tendency to be recognized by others or making special status. For example, one of the reasons that a doctor, for example, choose to be a doctor, in addition to helping the people, is a need for being recognized by others. And finally, the self-actualization needs, and this needs related to self-development and realization. As an example here for this group of needs is our tendency to make something that help others and known with. For example, if an author write a book, one of the major motives for him to write a book is to be known by this book, for example, after his death. So based on Maslow hierarchy of needs, those are the common needs that everyone face in his life. Any need from this hierarchy will not be a motive unless it's not satisfied. If the need is not satisfied, then we can say that it can be a motive. And once the need is satisfied, then it will not be a motive. So the unsatisfied need can be a motive. The perception is the process by which people select, organize, and interpret information to form meaningful picture of the world. Any individual has perceptions about different things in the world. For example, if you see an airplane, you perceive that this innovation can fly in the sky and carry a lot of people. This is the perception. A perception is an image or an idea about an object that we carry out or we feel in our mind. Perception can be influenced by 3 selection factors. The first factor is the selective attention. That means that when you see a lot of advertisement, you cannot process all of the advertisement that you see during the day, because some studies say that a regular person can be exposed to around 3,000 messages of advertisement in a day. And here you, as an individual, you cannot process all of these 3,000 messages and remember them and make a decision based on those advertisements. Rather, you select some of these advertisements, and this is what we call it selective attention. That means you pay attention to some of these messages that influence your attention more. The second factor is the selective distortion, and the selective distortion describes the tendency of people to interpret information in a way that will support what they already believe. That means selective distortion is related to your beliefs, the things that you are believing in. Therefore, marketers must study the consumer's mindset in order to make advertisement messages reach this level of selection. Finally, the selective retention is a level that enables the consumer to remember those messages in order to make decisions. As we said before, that an individual cannot process all of the messages that he or she exposed to. Rather, he or she select some of these messages and remember it during the process of buying. Learning also is another psychological factor that affects our decision making. We can define learning by saying that it's the change in behavior happened as a result of experience of the consumer. In learning, we can link between the different needs in order to understand why learning is important in marketing. As an example here, the drives can help us understand why most of customers buy certain products. For example, if we are talking about self-esteem needs, we can say that buying a luxurious car or expensive car can be a drive for self-esteem, and seeing an advertisement about, for example, BMW car can stimulate this need. And when we hear a good message about BMW car from our friends, for example, these messages can be cues that will enhance the probability that we buy this car. And then our response, or the responses, will be to buy this car. And finally, when we try this car, which is the BMW, and we find that this car is a very good car, this can be considered as reinforcement for us to recommend this car to our friends, or when we want to buy another car, we can look for BMW also. Beliefs and attitudes are also very important in psychological factors that affecting consumer buying behavior. And belief can be defined as the descriptive knowledge or descriptive thoughts about an object that we have in our mind, and the beliefs related to the knowledge, opinion, and faith. The more knowledge we have about an object, for example, a product, if we have positive beliefs about the object, then we can say that our attitude will be positive towards this object. So the attitude can be defined as the consistent evaluation about the object. If we have good beliefs about a product, then our attitude will be positive about this product. So now, after we discussed some of the psychological factors that affecting buyer decision or affecting consumer buying decision, we will now discuss the different types of buying decision behavior. And it's worth saying that we have 4 different types of buying behavior. And those 4 types of buying behavior depends on 2 important factors. The first factor is the level of involvement in the purchase. The level of involvement means that whether we are interested in buying this product or we just want any product that fulfill our needs. The level of involvement can be discussed from the price of the product. The more the product will be expensive, the more we will be involved in this purchase or this product. For example, if you want to buy a can of soft drink, for example, you will not be involved in this purchase in the same way that when you want to buy a car, for example, or a house. There is a significant difference here in level of involvement. The second factor that affects which type of buying behavior we will use is the factor that is related to the difference between the brands. So here, as you can see in this figure, that we have high involvement here and we have low involvement here in the horizontal dimension. In the vertical dimension, we have significant difference between the brands, and we have also few differences between brands. Now we can see different types of buying behavior and categorize those different types in 4 major types. The first type is what we call the complex buying behavior. And the complex buying behavior is the buying behavior that consumer use when he or she want to buy an expensive product, and in the same time there is significant difference between different brands that produce the same product. So here in this case we can say that the consumer will use complex buying behavior. Complex buying behavior usually involve more time and more effort. When a consumer wants to buy a product in this category, then the consumer will spend more time comparing between different products, and then he or she will decide to buy a certain product. Whereas if the consumer is highly involved in a product and there is only few differences between different brands, here the consumer will use what we call the dissonance reducing buying behavior. Dissonance reducing buying behavior, also the consumer will spend long time in comparing between different brands, and here the problem is that there are only few differences between different brands, so that the consumer will try to reduce the dissonance that he feels when trying to buy a product. Finally, he or she will buy the most preferred brand. As an example here, if a consumer wants to buy a laptop, and we all know that there are only few differences between different brands. Most of laptop manufacturers produce similar laptop specifications. Here the consumer wants to reduce the dissonance by trying to find the most preferred brands from his colleagues or his family, and then finally he will buy a certain brand. The third type of consumer buying behavior is what we call it the variety-seeking buying behavior. And in variety-seeking buying behavior, the consumer is less involved in the purchase, because when he or she wants to buy less expensive products, like for example a perfume or a toothbrush or toothpaste, then the consumer will try a brand now, and then in the second purchase he will try another brand. That's not because he is not satisfied by the previous brand, rather he or she is only seeking for variety. And finally, the last type of consumer buying behavior is the habitual buying behavior. And in habitual buying behavior, the brand name is not important. The consumer will buy the nearest brand or the most convenient brand. Like for example, if a consumer wants to buy a soap, then he will not look for certain brand, rather he will take the nearest brand.